The relationship between Japan and China, two prominent East Asian powers, has been a complex tapestry woven with threads of cooperation, competition, and conflict. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed a period of significant upheaval in China, marked by internal strife and external pressures. The once mighty Qing dynasty, weakened by corruption and internal rebellions, faced an aggressive West, eager for territorial and economic concessions. This era, known as the Century of Humiliation in Chinese historiography, saw Western powers, including Great Britain, France, and Russia, carve out spheres of influence in China, chipping away at its sovereignty and exacerbating its internal turmoil. Japan, witnessing the decline of China and undergoing its own rapid modernization and militarization following the Meiji Restoration, saw an opportunity to assert itself as a regional power. Japan's growing ambitions, fueled by a sense of national pride and a desire to secure resources and markets, led to increasing friction with China. The First Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, exposed the weaknesses of the Qing military and resulted in Japan's annexation of Taiwan and the Liaodong Peninsula, further deepening resentment in China. This victory emboldened Japan, fueling its imperial ambitions and setting the stage for further conflict in the decades to come. The humiliation suffered by China during this period left a deep scar on the national psyche, fostering a profound sense of resentment towards Japan. This resentment, coupled with Japan's growing militarism and expansionist policies, created a volatile atmosphere ripe for conflict. The seeds of a larger war were sown, waiting for the right conditions to germinate into full-blown conflict. The Marco Polo Bridge incident of July 7, 1937, is widely considered the starting point of the Second Sino-Japanese War. A seemingly minor clash between Japanese and Chinese troops near the Marco Polo Bridge, a vital access point to Beijing, quickly escalated into a full-scale invasion by Japanese forces. While the exact details of the incident remain shrouded in some mystery, with conflicting accounts from both sides, it served as the pretext for Japan's long-planned expansion into Chinese territory. Japanese military leaders, harboring ambitions of regional dominance, exploited the incident to justify a full-scale invasion of China. Chinese forces, ill-prepared and lacking the industrial capacity of Japan, mounted a fierce but ultimately unsuccessful defense. The ensuing conflict drew in millions of soldiers and resulted in widespread devastation and suffering. The fall of Shanghai in 1937 marked a significant turning point in the war. The Battle of Shanghai, lasting over 3 months, was one of the largest and bloodiest battles of the entire conflict. The city's capture dealt a major blow to Chinese morale and demonstrated the growing strength of the Japanese military machine. The war quickly expanded to encompass vast swaths of Chinese territory, with major battles fought in cities like Nanjing, Wuhan, and Changsha. The capture of Nanjing, then the capital of the Republic of China, in December 1937, led to one of the most horrific episodes of the war, the Nanking Massacre. Over a period of 6 weeks, Japanese troops engaged in a systematic campaign of murder, rape, and looting against the city's civilian population. The scale of the atrocities shocked the world, with estimates of the death toll ranging from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. Eyewitness accounts from survivors and foreign residents paint a chilling picture of the brutality unleashed on the city. The International Military Tribunal for the Far East, convened after the war, documented numerous instances of mass executions, sexual violence, and wanton destruction. The massacre stands as a stark reminder of the horrors of war and the depths of human cruelty. The legacy of the Nanking Massacre continues to haunt relations between Japan and China. While the event is acknowledged in Japanese textbooks, the extent of the atrocities and the responsibility of the Japanese military remain subjects of debate and controversy. This unresolved historical trauma continues to fuel mistrust and resentment, hindering reconciliation efforts between the two nations. Japan's expansionist ambitions extended beyond the heartland of China. In 1931, Japan orchestrated the Mukden Incident, a staged explosion that provided a pretext for the invasion of Manchuria, a resource-rich region in northeastern China. The Japanese military quickly occupied Manchuria, establishing a puppet state called Manchukuo under the nominal rule of Puyi, the last emperor of the Qing dynasty. Manchukuo served as a testing ground for Japan's colonial ambitions. Japanese authorities exploited the region's resources, including coal, iron ore, and timber, to fuel their war machine. They also implemented harsh policies aimed at suppressing local resistance and assimilating the population into Japanese culture. The establishment of Manchukuo marked a significant escalation of Japan's aggression in Asia and drew condemnation from the international community. The League of Nations, tasked with maintaining global peace, censured Japan for its actions, but proved powerless to enforce its resolutions. Japan's defiance of international norms emboldened it further, paving the way for its continued expansion in the region. Section 5. The Pacific Front, a wider war engulfs Asia. The Second Sino-Japanese War, initially a regional conflict, became intertwined with the larger global conflict of World War II. Japan's alliance with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, known as the Axis powers, drew it into the vortex of a wider war engulfing Europe and beyond. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, aimed at crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet, officially brought the United States into the war. The Pacific War expanded the geographical scope of the conflict, with battles fought across Southeast Asia, the Pacific Islands, and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Japanese forces, initially enjoying success with their rapid offensives, soon faced stiff resistance from the Allied powers, led by the United States. The war in the Pacific became a brutal struggle for survival, characterized by fierce naval battles, island-hopping campaigns, and widespread aerial bombardment. The merging of the Second Sino-Japanese War with the Pacific War had profound implications for China. The influx of American aid and military support bolstered Chinese resistance efforts but also drew China further into the maelstrom of global conflict. The war's expansion brought new levels of devastation and suffering to the Chinese people, but also presented an opportunity to contribute to the defeat of Japanese imperialism. Section 6. The Weight of Ideology, Nationalism, and Imperial Ambitions. The Second Sino-Japanese War was not merely a clash of armies, it was also a clash of ideologies. Japanese militarism, fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, expansionist ambitions, and a belief in Japanese racial superiority, drove the country's aggressive policies. Japanese propaganda portrayed the war as a crusade to liberate Asia from Western colonialism and establish a new order under Japanese leadership. This ideology found resonance within certain segments of Japanese society, particularly among the military elite and ultranationalist groups. These groups saw the war as a means to achieve Japan's destiny as a dominant power in Asia, securing resources, markets, and living space for its growing population. The clash of ideologies extended to China as well. The Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, seized upon the war as an opportunity to mobilize the population against both Japanese aggression and the nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek. The CCP's rhetoric of national resistance and social revolution resonated with many Chinese, particularly peasants and workers who bore the brunt of the war's devastation. Section 7. Resistance and Collaboration, a Nation Divided. The war fragmented China, creating a complex and often tragic landscape of resistance and collaboration. The nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek retreated inland to Chongqing, establishing a wartime capital and continuing the fight against Japanese forces. The CCP, operating from its base in Yan'an, adopted guerrilla warfare tactics, harassing Japanese supply lines and mobilizing peasant support. The war created a precarious balance of power between the nationalists and the communists. While both factions shared the goal of defeating Japan, their underlying ideological differences and ambitions for post-war China simmered beneath the surface. The war years witnessed instances of both cooperation and conflict between the two sides as they maneuvered for position in the anticipated post-war order. The Japanese occupation, often brutal and exploitative, also fostered collaboration among some segments of the Chinese population. Some individuals, driven by opportunism, fear, or a belief in Japanese propaganda, chose to collaborate with the occupying forces, serving in puppet governments, assisting in administrative tasks, or even joining Japanese-sponsored military units. This collaboration, often viewed as treason by those who resisted, added another layer of complexity to the wartime experience. Section 8. The Atomic Dawn, a New Era of Warfare. The Second Sino-Japanese War, already a conflict of immense scale and brutality, witnessed a turning point unlike any other in human history, the dawn of the atomic age. In August 1945, the United States, seeking to force Japan's unconditional surrender and bring a swift end to the war, dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The atomic bombings, resulting in unprecedented devastation and loss of life, ushered in a new era of warfare characterized by the terrifying power of nuclear weapons. The bombing's impact extended far beyond Japan, casting a long shadow over international relations and fueling anxieties about the potential for future nuclear conflict. While the atomic bombings ultimately brought about Japan's surrender and the end of World War II, their use remains a subject of intense debate and controversy. Moral questions about the targeting of civilian populations and the long-term consequences of nuclear fallout continue to be debated, highlighting the profound ethical dilemmas posed by these weapons of mass destruction. Section 9. The Price of Peace, Uneasy Reconciliation. The end of the Second World War brought relief to a war-torn world, but the process of reconciliation and rebuilding proved long and arduous. Japan, devastated by the war and facing occupation by Allied forces, embarked on a path of demilitarization and democratization under the watchful eye of the United States. China, emerging from the conflict victorious but deeply scarred, grappled with internal divisions and the challenges of post-war reconstruction. The war's legacy cast a long shadow over relations between Japan and China. The atrocities committed by Japanese forces during the war, particularly the Nanking Massacre, remained a source of deep resentment and mistrust. China demanded accountability and reparations for Japan's wartime actions, while Japan, undergoing its own process of coming to terms with its past, struggled to find a balance between acknowledging responsibility and moving forward. The Cold War further complicated the reconciliation process. The division of the world into communist and capitalist blocs, with China aligning with the Soviet Union and Japan aligning with the United States, created new geopolitical tensions and hindered efforts to address the unresolved issues stemming from the war. Section 10. Ghosts of the Past, Legacy and Contested Narratives. The Second Sino-Japanese War continues to reverberate in the 21st century, shaping contemporary relations between Japan and China. Despite the passage of decades and significant economic and cultural ties, the war's legacy remains a contentious issue, hindering full reconciliation and fueling nationalist sentiments on both sides. Differing interpretations of history, particularly regarding wartime atrocities, continue to be a source of tension. Japanese textbooks often downplay or gloss over the extent of Japanese brutality during the war, leading to accusations of historical revisionism from China and other affected countries. China, for its part, has often emphasized the victimhood narrative, using the war as a rallying point for nationalist sentiment and a justification for its growing military assertiveness. These contested narratives have become intertwined with contemporary geopolitical rivalries. As China's economic and military power grows, it has increasingly challenged Japan's regional influence, leading to renewed tensions over territorial disputes and historical grievances. The ghosts of the past continue to haunt the present, reminding us of the enduring power of historical memory and the challenges of achieving lasting peace and reconciliation. Section 11. Echoes of Conflict, Lessons for the Future. The Second Sino-Japanese War stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the enduring legacy of historical trauma. The war's lessons resonate in the 21st century, offering valuable insights into the dangers of unchecked nationalism, the importance of historical accountability, and the fragility of peace. The rise of Japanese militarism in the 1930s, fueled by a potent mix of nationalism and imperial ambition, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked nationalist sentiment. The war's brutality underscores the importance of international cooperation and the need for effective mechanisms to prevent and resolve conflicts. The contested narratives surrounding the war highlight the challenges of achieving historical reconciliation and the enduring power of historical memory. The echoes of this conflict remind us that peace is not a static endpoint, but an ongoing process requiring constant vigilance, dialogue, and a commitment to understanding and addressing the root causes of conflict. As we confront the challenges of the 21st century, The lessons learned from the Second Sino-Japanese War can serve as a guidepost for navigating a complex and interconnected world, striving to create a future where the horrors of war are relegated to the history books.